Welcome to Talking Confidence with Holly Caplan. Having confidence in the workplace is essential for progress, fulfillment, and yes, survival. The issue is that confidence doesn't always come easy and is impacted and influenced along the way. But the key to finding and keeping your confidence is how to recognize how professional situations have affected how you think of yourself. In this podcast together, we will examine exactly what impacts women's confidence in the workplace. We're going to get raw in these episodes. We're going to peel back the layers of social interactions, company culture, gender discrimination, ageism, and more. My guests will include entrepreneurs, corporate executives, and business owners. We're going to get down to what these women are really feeling. Expect to find vulnerability, openness, and relatability. But most importantly, expect to find your confidence. Hello, Talking Confidence listeners. It's great to be back after a 2-year break. Yes, I took a break from podcasting a couple of years ago when my life unexpectedly changed directions. At the end of 2022, I was still actively coaching women in the workplace and hosting this podcast. But at the beginning of 2023, I found myself connecting with an organization that, funnily enough, is in the business of confidence. Our worlds aligned, and I took a role with this extraordinary company called MERS Aesthetics. My journey at MERS has been fantastic, to say the least, and because of my recent experiences, I'm now feeling the calling to podcast again. My interest in confidence and perspectives have grown. Now I have more stories to tell, more interviews to explore, and more people to elevate. So I'm thrilled to kick off season 3, but this time with a bit of a different point of view. In this season, we're going to focus on people who are in the business of confidence, meaning those individuals whose jobs drive confidence and the people that they serve. I want to know why they do what they do and why confidence is important to them. You can expect to hear from different types of business owners from several different backgrounds, and you may be surprised by how many people out there specialize in confidence. Well, we are here, and it's a great place to be. Welcome to season 3. I've been looking forward to this conversation today because over the last 5 years, I've had the opportunity to work with the nonprofit organization Dress for Success. The mission of the organization is to help unemployed and underemployed women achieve economic independence by providing no-fee programs, development tools, and professional attire to thrive and work in life. I personally align with this organization because helping women achieve confidence and professional success is very fulfilling for me. I love to talk about it because I love sharing what it can do because it is powerful. Personally, I've been able to serve as a mentor and coach for a few different national programs with Dress for Success. And as a result, I got to develop relationships with the women who are the clients. I've heard their stories of employment struggles, financial issues, homelessness, and yes, fear. Dress for Success is built to provide a support system for these ladies and help them achieve success and confidence. Today, we're going to get to talk to the executive director of the Dallas-Fort Worth chapter of Dress for Success, KJ Johnson. We're going to dive into a deep conversation about how she helps women find their confidence. And you should know, KJ is one of my favorite people. Her energy is radiant, and she is one of the most positive people I've ever met. Please be sure to listen through to the end of this episode so you can hear my 2 tips on the importance of helping your community and elevating women who need support. But first, here's more on KJ. Karen, KJ Johnson, is a highly skilled and influential leader renowned for her inspirational women empowerment, speaking, and an impactful executive leader. As the founder and CEO of the Confident Woman, that's confident with a K, she empowers women to build their self-confidence and achieve their professional goals. KJ has garnered a multitude of awards, recognition, and nominations, including the Top 50 Powerful Women, Top 25 Global Influencer, and recognition as an influential African-American businesswoman to follow on LinkedIn. Currently living in Dallas, KJ is a devoted mother to her brilliant son, Chester, and dotes on her lovely granddaughter, Legacy. Oh, and yes, you guessed it, KJ is an optimistic and enthusiastic fan of Dallas Cowboys, and there's no changing that. Hello, Miss KJ. I am so glad you're here today. I have been looking so forward to this podcast episode today.
Yes, I am super excited to be here. How are you doing today?
Good.
Yes.
This is my second recording today, so I'm good and warmed up. And I'm glad to have you here because what we're going to talk about today is super important.
Okay.
super, super important. And I'm thrilled that the listeners are going to get to hear more about Dress for Success.
Yes.
And your business and what is so important to you about helping other women feel confident.
I love it.
I do too.
Okay.
So I'm excited, but I always like to start these conversations with how we met. Do you remember how we met?
If I'm not mistaken, was the first time we met was when we was at a function, I think with the Louisville or Capel Chamber of Commerce.
It was Girls Inc. It was Girls Inc. Do you remember Girls Inc.?
It was Girls Inc.
It was April 2022.
Yep, it sure was. Oh my God.
And I think we were seated at the same table.
We were.
And you were just such a bright light. And you were like, come down to Dress for Success. I need to show you my catwalk. I was like, well, I'm coming because I want to see this catwalk.
Oh my God.
This famous catwalk for the clients.
I do. We was at Girls Inc. was having their annual breakfast.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
It was a lot of fun. And look, we're still here.
I know. And then the next time we saw each other, you were...
What were we doing?
Because we was with the Capel school.
Did we do something? Oh, we did. We did something with the chamber, the local chamber.
Exactly. Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
That was fun.
So we go way back now. Now we're old friends. We're not old. We're just old friends.
Okay. I'll roll with that.
So, anyway, I love to tell that story about how we met, and I just find it so interesting. Yeah. And I'm glad that we've had a friendship since then.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I can't wait for this conversation. But before we get into it, would you tell us a little bit about yourself personally and professionally?
Okay. Oh, I don't know. Let me see.
How much time do we have?
I know, right? How much time do we have? Born and raised in Dallas. You know, you usually don't find too many people, born here, still living here. But, you know, I've had the pleasure of traveling all over the country. I used to work for, you know, a variety of major corporations that folks may have heard, like Verizon.
Who? I've never heard of them.
Right. I know. Who is that?
Who's Verizon?
Can you hear me now?
Right. Yeah. Oh, right. Get
there you go. Yeah.
Good one.
So I traveled all over the country with them. I even have worked at the post office, right, which is where I met my first husband. I have a son who is, I keep telling him every time your birthday comes, you're making mom old. So he will be 40 this year in August. Yes. And then I have a granddaughter who will be 8 in August.
Is that Miss Legacy?
That is Miss Legacy. Yes. So I'm single, you know, loving life.
So all you men listening, KJ is available. She's very confident.
I didn't say that.
I said it. That was a shameless plug for your dating life. I have to.
I don't know. Boo may have a problem with that.
Oh.
I do have somebody I'm seeing.
Okay.
But,
well, you know, you're available. So.
Exactly.
Again, for all you men out there, we're going to give out your contact information at the end.
A little bit later, right?
A little bit later.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I'm the oldest of 3 girls. You know, so, man, a couple of things, right? So, executive director for Dress for Success Dallas.
Yes.
Business owner of The Confident Woman. And, of course, the confidence starts with a K, not a C. And then I'm also the president-elect for another organization called the National Association of Women Business Owners, the DFW chapter.
I love it.
And June, I will be inducted in as president. So it's really like I have nothing, you know, really to do.
You're so bored.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're doing with all of your free time. I don't know how you do it. No, literally, I don't know how you do it because you're at everything. You're all over DFW.
Yeah.
You are at everything. Every time I open up LinkedIn, I'm like, oh, there she is again. There she is again.
And you know what? It's funny that you say that because I feel like I'm not at enough places. I am so serious, like, because I see other people and I'll be like, man, they're always at an event. Like, I got to start attending that. And oh my God, I should have been there, right? So it's funny, right, that different people see things totally different, right? And looking exactly at the same thing. So, but you know, part of what I do, you know, really requires for me to be in the community, especially, you know, as executive director for Dress for Success, because, you know, that's who we are impacting, right, is the community and really trying to help women achieve that economic independence. And so it's really about trying to find that woman. And really, we don't have to look too hard because unfortunately, there are so many women in the DFW area who are not working. And just with the recent, executive orders and all of those things, there's even more people, right, not working. So it's unfortunate, right, but we're really trying to do what we can to try to help these ladies get back on their feet so they can take care of themselves and their family.
I know you are. And I know that you mean everything that you're saying. Like, I know this is a big passion of yours. I know you love to see these women get back on their feet.
Absolutely.
It's evident in everything that you do.
Yes.
I want to get into their confidence.
Okay.
Because I want to know what drove you as KJ to helping improve women's confidence. Why is that important to you?
You know what? I want to say somewhat fortunate, right? So just kind of going back to my young age when I was a teenager, I was always that one that kind of like took over.
Really?
Right?
I thought you were going to say you were the shy one.
No.
The shy, quiet one.
No. No. So I was always, taking charge. It came natural to me, right? And then as I moved into corporate America, I still had that confidence, of who I was. And I think part of it too was right in what I was doing. So I was a sales instructor in corporate America. And I tell people today, everything we do is sales.
Yep.
A lot of people don't realize that, but I tell people that if you have a husband, you sold yourself to him. If you have a girlfriend, you sold yourself. Like you did. You was putting on you brought your best foot forward, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you do when you're selling, right? An accounting executive or what have you is bringing the company's best foot forward to solidify the deal, right?
Correct.
That's what it's about. And so, but what I found, Holly, in corporate America is that even though I was good at what I did, right, excelled in all of those things, I could not crack the glass ceiling. I couldn't. And after a while, your confidence, right, it gets
knocked down and it gets knocked down.
Knocked down, right? But I still knew that I was capable, right? And so I finally realized that many times life situations, just different things come up that could really cause you to think that you don't have what it takes.
Yep. Even though you do.
Even though you do. But when you think about, when I, one of my signature talks, right, is who do you think you are, right? And so in really trying to help women to understand that who you are, the power, the brilliance, right, that you really have, it's already in you, but you got to bring it out. But sometimes when you get knocked down, when you get beat up and people keep saying you're not worthy, right, you're not good, right? So when you're constantly hearing those type things, unfortunately, the inner critic, right, our inner critic who is, it really, I don't want to say they're our friend because they can be good, but they're always there and they're always giving you the negative. So after a while, you start believing that.
Yes, you do.
And when you start believing that, then your confidence continues to be knocked down.
And you shrink.
And you hide.
That can be depressing.
Right? Absolutely. Right? And so for me, I really wanted to be able to help women to silence that inner critic, help them overcome that imposter syndrome, and really help them to exude the executive presence that's already on the inside, right? So when I think about, I love The Lion King, so many lessons, right, in The Lion King. And so when I think about Simba, you know what I'm saying? Like, he was his father. You know what I'm saying? But he was small. He had to go through the growing pains.
Yep.
And many times as women, we don't look at these things as growing pains. We see them as obstacles in our way and nobody really wants us to be successful, right? We see it as those type things, and really it's growing pains so that you can get to where you need to be.
Yes.
So that you can turn around, right, and give a testimony for the next person coming through.
Exactly.
Right? So it really became very passionate for me to really be able to help women see the brilliance that is already in them, right? So one of the things I always talk about, right? So think about this. When God created man and woman, He created woman to give life, not man. Man was here first. We came along and he chose us to be the giver of life. We are the crown to man's head, right? And I know I don't went scripture on you, right? But just read the book. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And it was interesting enough. I think I heard, I don't know if it was this morning or yesterday morning on the radio, right, that this guy, I guess, is going around being celibate, right, and things like that. And so he's trying to tell the men that, you know, your stuff is precious and that you shouldn't just be all willy-nilly sleeping with everybody. And I was like, no. No, sweetie. That's our position. Not yours.
That's my job. Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane, right? We are the ones that are precious, right? Not you.
You're cracking me up.
Hey, I'm just saying.
You're saying it like it is.
Saying like it is.
But I love where your desire and core to drive confidence came from, because you recognize things within yourself.
Yes.
And you wanted to help other women.
Absolutely.
And that translates beautifully through Dress for Success.
Absolutely.
You know, this organization is like... You know, it's really, really important to me. And I just love everything you're doing. So now we've heard about what's important to you in helping other women become confident. How did you transition over to Dress for Success? How did you get into this?
I know, like, great question. So, you know, I eventually left corporate America, right, and started my own business, which at the time it was called KJ Strategy Design Studio. And that was really about helping small women business owners, right, just get started, right, in business.
Which is terrific.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Right, which is why I'm the president-elect for NAVO.
Right, which is a big need.
Absolutely. A lady that we had never met, but we followed each other on social media.
Yeah.
And so she reached out to me and told me that there was a board position, you know, open. They was looking for board members. And, you know, she told me to, you know, check it out, pray about it, you know, and things like that. And so I did. And I was just intrigued, right, with the mission. So I applied for the board position, got interviewed, right, and came on as a board member. And my first board meeting, unfortunately, the interim executive director resigned.
Oh.
And so we thanked her for her service, you know, and so when she got off the call, we was like, oh, crap. Now what we going to do? Right? Because board members are just volunteers. Like, we don't work for the organization. And so because I had my own business, I said, well, you know, I can step in until we find somebody. And that was really the extent of it. I was just really just going to stand in. And less than 30 days later, the board president came up and said, hey, we found our new executive director. And I was like, oh, okay, right. So I'm running to the office, about to get on my laptop because I'm like, we're going to interview this candidate, right? And so she said, no. It's you.
Were you like, what? It's me?
Right, exactly. So
you were told.
Yeah. But, you know, and so this, I like to say, really, I volunteered.
Okay.
Right? Because what if I had never raised my hand?
You wouldn't have been chosen.
I wouldn't have been chosen,
no, you
right?
have to raise your hand.
So when we talk about confidence.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to be willing to put yourself out there.
Yeah, you do.
Right? And a lot of times as women, we don't like to do that. Why? Because we're like, you know, that's scary. Somebody may challenge us.
Which happens.
Maybe somebody else may be more qualified.
And we're not supposed to show off.
Absolutely right. Because again, back to my talk, you know, I always talk about, they always told us, right, little girls, right, are to be seen, not heard. Right. So speaking up, right, goes against everything that's been grained and etched in our minds as little girls.
Yes.
Right. That's why we're so big on being beautiful on the outside versus focusing on the inside.
Oh, you're so good. You're so good at this.
I'm just saying.
I know, but I'm absorbing it all.
Yeah. So, you know, you got to be willing to put yourself out there, right? So, and how can you get to a place to where you are volunteering yourself or you are stepping out there, or what I like to say is coming from behind the camera lens. Because, we love to say, oh, I love to be behind the scenes. We love to say that.
It's not too showy that way.
Yeah, I'm behind the scenes.
It's not selfish.
Right. But you're hiding, right? And why do we see it, right? The reason why we don't get out there and things like that and we don't brag, or I shouldn't say brag, why we don't talk about ourselves, right? Because it's been ingrained and etched in our minds that is being selfish.
It is.
Right? So it's just these things that we've been taught that is not necessarily true.
That you have to rewire.
Right. You got to rewire.
And that takes work.
Absolutely, it does. So, but part of that is preparation and practice. Preparation and practice,
Agreed.
right? So if you're prepared, right, and you raise your hand and somebody, quote unquote, challenge you, if you're prepared, let them challenge you.
Right.
Because you know it.
Right. Exactly.
Right? You've studied, right? And you know what you know, right? And so you are able to answer any questions, right? And then another way too is stop looking at it as they challenged you.
Yeah.
Somebody legitimately could be asking a question because they don't understand.
And you'll be ready for the answer.
Absolutely.
And I love this because I know this filters into everything that you're doing with these ladies as clients.
Absolutely.
Because they need to hear this.
Oh, absolutely.
They need to hear all of this.
Yeah.
I need to hear this.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
it's universal.
It is.
I talk about Dress for Success a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And what surprises me is some people don't know about it.
They do not.
Why? I mean, I just think it's crazy because I'll be like, yeah, Dress for Success. And I get a blank stare. I'm like, don't you know what that is? I know what it is. It's been around for 25 years?
It'll be 20 years next year, 2026.
See, so, okay. Yeah. So for the listeners, will you tell us how the program works?
Sure.
And what you guys do so that they can be more educated.
Absolutely. So our mission in a nutshell is to help women achieve economic independence. We do that by providing them a professional network of support, career readiness tools, and then, of course, clothing. And let me just say this, too, because our name is Dress for Success. And a lot of times people may think, oh, you know what, they're just providing clothes. But I really want people to understand that it's not just clothes. Clothes really makes a difference in these women's life. They have nothing. Many of them live in homeless shelters. Many of them have a minimum of 2 kids that they're trying to support. Many of them are victims of domestic violence. We just saw a lady, what's today, Friday, Wednesday, who was re-entry, which means she was incarcerated.
Oh, goodness.
Right? You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So we're working with women that unfortunately may not have had, this easy little road, right? They've gone really through some challenges. Things have been hard. Right? And even women who at one time was employed and maybe got laid off, right? The average person is working paycheck to paycheck. So when you get laid off
and you have no paycheck,
but guess what? Rent's still due tomorrow. Tomorrow's March 1st, right? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And everything is skyrocketing high. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was telling my sister the other day, I said, I remember when oil changes was like $25, $30. Like they are $50
That's
and
ridiculous.
$75
That's
today.
Ridiculous.
Right? And so, so I tell people that the clothes really does make a difference. Right? And even for those of us that can't afford clothes or whatever, right? I'm going to prove it to you. When you go in the store and you purchase a dress, a suit, or whatever it is, a pair of earrings, a necklace, right? Lipstick, whatever, and you put it on, what's the first thing that happens? You're smiling. All of a sudden, your attitude changes. Yep. It makes a difference.
It makes you confident. Confident.
So I want people to stop downplaying what the clothes do for the women, right? Because the first thing is, and I tell people all day, we're going to work with you on your resume. right? We're going to do all of those things. But I don't care how great your resume look, if you don't walk in with a dose of confidence to be able to share with that hiring manager that you're the one for the job, you're not going to get the job. It don't matter how great your resume look. So you got to believe it, right? You got to have that confidence, right? You got to kind of have that, hey, when you walk in.
You got to own it.
Exactly. So that you can articulate your experience and your education, right, to that hiring manager, right? Because they're looking for personality.
Yes.
They're looking, right? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I tell people all the time, you represent two brands at minimum. Your personal brand and the company that you work for.
Yes, very true.
Right? So I tell people all the time, right? I am a closet road rager.
Right?
Are
you?
So they like, KJ, what does that mean? That I have road rage, but nobody knows it. Unless you're talking to me on the phone, right? You'll hear me talk, right? But I tell people, right? And why is that? So one, people are crazy. They will shoot you dead. So you better not do
Especially
do
on
too
I-35.
much on the road, right?
No.
But then I always remind myself that it would never look good on the 6 o'clock news if I was flipping somebody off. And I'm the executive director of Dress for Success. That's not going to look
good.
right. That would not look good.
I'd be like, I know her on the local NBC affiliate. Right. Why is KJ on? That's not a
KJ, right? And so you have to be mindful, right, of that, wherever you are, and today people's phones are cameras and you can easily make a video.
Yes.
And so you're out there and you walk the street. Like you really have to be careful, right, when you're in public about what you're doing and things like that. And I'm not saying for you not to be authentically who you are.
Right.
But be mindful of that because how is it going to come across?
Right.
Right. And then people will say, well, we shouldn't really be caring about what other people think and things like that. And I hear you to a certain degree.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, there is something you could say, you could do that you could cause somebody who was on the edge to quote unquote backslide.
Right.
Because you see what I'm saying? Because they saw
exactly
you. And you may never know that you caused the person to slip. Right? 9 times they're not going to come and tell you, hey, you're the reason why I fell off the cliff. You know what I'm saying? But they fell off the cliff because you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But again, be authentically who you are. But then we also, too, have to be mindful of who we are around. We don't live in this world by ourselves.
No.
We live with other people.
Well, that's the other thing. We don't live, when people say, I don't care what other people think.
Yeah.
To your point, but it's a degree.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
at the same time, you have to think about how you affect
other people. Absolutely. No differently than with your daughter. Right? You're trying to raise a respectable young lady.
Yes.
Right? So hardworking, right? You want her to know you got to go to work, right? Things are not going to be handed out to you, right? So you're being an example for her. You know what I'm saying? And so it is important, right? So we want to, we have to be mindful of those things, right? And I tell people that even though you may not want to be, but we're responsible for each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
I love that. It's such a big lesson, such a good lesson that you're teaching these clients. Okay, I got to do this. Tell me about the KJ Catwalk. Tell me what happens when you get these ladies dressed up.
Let me tell you, first and foremost, I am the only Dress for Success that does this.
Okay.
Right. But I just felt like we needed to do more because, again, it starts with the confidence. And it just so happened that when they get dressed and they're looking at themselves in this full mirror, that it's a long hallway. And at the other end of that hallway is my office. So it just made sense to make that the KJ Catwalk.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I put on Whitney Houston's I'm Every Woman.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, the anthem.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. And I make them put their hands on their hips, head up in the air, and walk like they already have the job. And I tell them, so they have to do it twice because they get 2 full outfits on that first appointment. And if they don't do it right, I make them turn around and go back.
Good for you.
Yeah, because
good for you.
No, right? You're going to show me some attitude, right? But every time, Holly, attitudes are totally changed. Confidence, you see it come up. We have so many testimonies where, people, and I've seen it where women have come in crying. I know one lady walked in one time and, we have mannequins dressed and things like that. And she's like, oh my God, I didn't know I was supposed to dress up. And I was like, no. We're going to take care of that for you. Right. And like she was in tears. Right? Because she felt like she should have been dressed and, I can't believe y'all are going to like help me. And, and I told her, I said, this is a no judge zone, right? We're here to help you, right? We want you to be successful, right? And so, Holly, one of the things that I tell people when I go speak and talk about Dress for Success, there's one thing that keeps me up at night. And that is because every woman who comes through our door, they leave totally different. But the problem that I have is when they go back to their situation.
Because we can't control that.
How can we help them stay encouraged, to stay inspired? Because then it's on you. Because now you're back in the situation. And so what you got to do is remember, right, what you felt, right, when you were at Dress for Success, right? What happened, right? So if that means for you to put that dress back on, right? If that means to just remember an encouraging word that we gave you, right? And things like that. And I tell them, because I'm real big on affirmations, I'm big on motivational quotes, and I'll tell them, follow me. Because I'm always putting something out there, right? And just like you said earlier, we all need encouragement. We all need, right, inspiration. We all need motivation, right? But sometimes when you're by yourself, it can be tough because the inner critic is right there.
And you can get in your head.
All of that.
All of a sudden you see things differently and you begin to doubt yourself.
Right. Absolutely. Right. So, for me, you got to really talk to yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And say, no. I'm more than enough.
Yes.
I am capable. Right. And look, it's hard. It's difficult. It's challenging. It's all of that. Right. But I always remind women, right, of who they are. You are a warrior. Right. You have everything you need to achieve whatever it is you want to do, but you have to believe it. You are an overcomer. How do we know you're an overcomer? Look at all the stuff you done already overcame.
Look where you are.
Right? And we all know that we deal with problems and issues and stuff like that, right? And while you're going through it, it feels like it's never going to be over. But guess what? It's going to be over.
Everything passes.
Everything passes, right? So you're an overcomer, right? What I tell y'all, God chose us, right, to be the giver of
not
man,
Adam,
right? So, right, not Adam.
God,
right?
Adam, whatever.
So we are a masterpiece, right? So you got to know that you may not feel like a masterpiece, but I tell you to help you to look, whatever it takes for you to help yourself know that you're a masterpiece. I don't care if that means for you to go put on one of your nice outfits. I don't care if that means to go put on some lipstick. Like whatever it is that you need to do to pump yourself up, you need to do that. And here's another thing too. I always tell women, you should at least have one cheerleader.
I agree.
You need one cheerleader, baby, because look, let me tell you, they will hype you up and you be like, girl,
got to have a support system.
You have to, right? You got to, and I tell people that the A is that we are anointed.
Yeah.
Right. And then N is that we're noble queens. You know what I'm saying? So that's part of what I really try to help women to understand, right? That's what woman stands for. Warrior, overcomer, masterpiece, anointed, noble queen.
Didn't you create that, KJ?
I did create that.
You did create that. That came out of your brain.
It did.
You're so creative.
Yeah. So,
well, you just motivated me.
Oh, well, good.
And I talk to you about once a month.
Right.
And I'm like,
at least.
Oh my God, I'm so motivated right now. I love hearing all this. And I love hearing about your evolution and the importance of Dress for Success and what it can do for women. And Is there a success story that you could share about one of your clients?
Yeah. I mean, we had a young lady who, unfortunately, her mom really had kind of sold her into prostitution.
Oh, jeez.
She was in the service. She had a broken jaw. Like, she had really gone through just a lot of stuff. And she walks with the cane, but she can walk, but she has a cane. And, she came to us, broken, because it's just so many things that had happened to her. And, I talked to her for a while, and I don't necessarily do that with every client. But if I hear a story or I overhear them talking to the career counselor or something, or they get ready to leave, and definitely I talk to everybody when you do the KJ Catwalk, right? So, I'm fully engaged, so I'm not that ED that just sits in the office, right? I know the clients.
You have a personal connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. So she, was looking for, and she had a degree and all of those things. And yeah, she is now the director at University of Texas in Dallas.
That is exciting.
Right. And she works, helping other veterans. They have a veterans program. And so, that's just one of many. I mean, we had another young lady had gone through a lot of stuff. She's a VP at Chase Bank now. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lady just reached out to me, and I got to go back and look at her file. But she said, KJ, you helped me in November. She said, I don't know if you remember me or not. She said, but I've been on the job for a month and da-da-da. And she said, and I really think you need to, she said, I've been asked to find somebody to come in and talk to our group because there's a rift between management and the employees.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Never heard of that before.
You're funny. She talking about you never heard of that before.
I've been around.
Right, exactly. So, we have a lot of success stories, where, people have come in, they've gotten the boost, right, that they needed.
Yeah.
Because, I tell everybody, at the end of the day, you have to do the work. There's going to be days it's going to be hard, and there's going to be days you're not going to want to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I always say, give yourself grace.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Because a lot of times we put a lot on ourselves as women. Give yourself grace. It's okay to be kind to yourself. It's just that you can't take off every day.
No.
Right?
You cannot sit in your lazy boy and eat.
Exactly.
Eat potato chips.
Right. So I tell people, if it's 30 minutes, then it's 30 minutes. You got to give yourself time. So I'm going to sit in the corner and pout for 20 minutes.
Get it out of your system.
And get it. And then after that, it's time to go to work.
Yeah, you have to rebound.
Absolutely.
You really, really do.
Absolutely. Because guess what? Nobody's going to do it for you.
No.
Nobody's going to do it for you.
It's all on you.
It's all on you.
And you can make a choice.
Yep. Absolutely.
And when you're helping women make these choices.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I absolutely love it. I tell people I have the best job.
You do.
Yeah,
you do.
I do. I do.
And look, I made my daughter come volunteer last summer. I was like, let's put her to work.
And I have a lot of moms who have volunteered and bring their kids, in. So
it's important to me that we teach them.
It is.
They know the importance of this and that they get to partake in it.
Absolutely. And to know that everybody is not as fortunate as they are.
Exactly.
Right. And so, helping them to understand, which is, our whole, so that's why diversity is so important, for us to just be, and again, if we would just give each other grace.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Because everybody don't know. Right. How you was raised, the things that you were, given or shown, right? This person may not was shown that. No. I remember raising my son, because I traveled a lot when I worked for Verizon. So one of the things I told him, I said, life is bigger than Louisville, Texas.
Yeah. Believe it or not.
Right. Yes. So if you ever get an opportunity to move out of the state with an employer, do it. Right. Go experience the world. It's different. Yeah.
I totally agree.
And why did I say that? Because he's been in Tampa, Florida for 18 years.
Oh, is that where he's been the whole time?
Yes.
He's like, thanks, Mom. Peace out. Going to Florida. See you later.
Yeah, he went there with his job, T-Mobile, and he's still with T-Mobile.
Oh
he's
my
in
gosh.
Columbia
You're
right
Verizon
now.
and he went T-Mobile?
He went T-Mobile, yeah. But he
Yeah.
followed in his mom's footsteps.
He
That's
did.
fine.
He did.
So he's actually he's a training manager.
Good for him.
And and he's in Columbia. He actually comes home Sunday, so they open up an office out there. So he had to go out there and get folks recruited.
You must be very
together.
proud.
Very proud.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good for
Yeah.
you.
So,
Good for you, Mom.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so how do our listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah.
If they want you to speak or
Okay.
attend an event, how do they find you?
Oh, wow. So real easy. LinkedIn, Facebook, I will stop there, is Karen KJ Johnson.
Yes.
Okay. On Instagram, it's the Karen KJ Johnson.
Well, you are the Karen KJ Johnson after all.
I know, but it's not the on Facebook or LinkedIn. So you could do that, and you can easily follow Dress for Success Dallas too. I encourage you to do that on LinkedIn, Facebook, IG. IG, though, we're Dress for Success Dallas Fort Worth, spelled all out. If you need motivation, encouragement, right, things like that, follow me on The Confident Woman.
Yes.
It is that on all three of those social media
Confident
platforms.
with a K.
Confident with a K, right? And if you are a women business owner, follow us on NAWBO, NAWBO DFW. We would love for you to come and join us so we can help you. It's all about giving you the tools, the resources, right, that you need so that you can see it so you can succeed as a small woman-owned business.
Thank you for giving us all these resources.
Thank you. And glad to be here.
I'm thrilled that you were here today and sharing your story and about Dress for Success.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me as I go through my hot flash.
Thanks. I hope this episode has influenced you to get involved with your local Dress for Success chapter or find an organization that you connect with that you can contribute to. Your time and effort will go a long way. I promise. Here are my 2 parting tips for you. Firstly, get involved with your community. Look, I know it's easy to stay in your bubble of work and family. We are busy. I get it. But trust me, when you start giving to an organization that you align with, you will make an impact, and in return, you will find fulfillment and purpose and confidence. Secondly, when you do get involved, bring your kids and your friends to share the experience so they will recognize the importance of helping others and how they can do it. Those are my parting words today. This is Holly Caplan. Cheers until the next episode of Talking Confidence. Thank you, Talking Confidence listeners, for joining me for this episode today. I hope it gave you something to think about. If you like this conversation, please leave us a review and share your thoughts. Thanks.